Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our What DaSy Can Do For You webinar. This is our agenda for today's webinar. We're going to have a quick welcome and go over an overview of DaSy. We'll talk about some technical assistance opportunities, highlight some DaSy toolkits that we have, discuss target setting support that we can provide, and then share some future technical assistance opportunities before closing.
Welcome again, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Before we jump into the content, we would like to know a little about who is in our audience today. So we invite you to share your name and state in the chat. You also have the option to change your name on the Zoom session if you would like. We have a poll that should pop up on your screen. And our question for you is, how familiar are you with DaSy? One is, I don't know why DaSy is spelled the way it is, and I might be on the wrong webinar. Two is, I'm new to DaSy and looking forward to learning more. Three is, I know about DaSy, but I've been too busy to use DaSy tools and TA opportunities. Four is, I've used DaSy tools and/or have participated in TA opportunities. And five is, I use DaSy resources all the time and participate in multiple DaSy TA opportunities a year. So we'll give a few moments for you to provide your responses. And again, for those who are still trickling in, you can share your name and your state in the chat. Welcome again, everyone. It looks like a good mix. Some of us have used DaSy tools and participated in TA opportunities here. Thank you for sharing in the chat. Welcome, everyone. Well, we hope everyone can take away something from today's webinar. And now I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer to provide us an overview of DaSy.
Great, thank you, Grace. I'm Jennifer Shantz, and I have the honor of being the project director for DaSy. And given that in the poll, it sounds like many of you are familiar with us, I will fly through my set of slides so we can get to the good stuff. But just for those that don't know us, we are funded by the Department of Education's Office of Special Ed Programs as a TA center, a technical assistance center. And here on the slide are our formal objectives. Our focus is really on improving states' capacity to collect, report, analyze, and use IDEA data. And we have a particularly focus on supporting states with identifying and being able to address some of your critical questions around improving your programs for young children with disabilities, as well as a focus on child find and child find data. Next slide, please. So the why data, why this focus? Clearly we know that everyone has their OSEP reporting requirements, and so we're here for you to help you support those efforts around data. But really, the ultimate goal is to empower states to be able to collect, report, analyze, and use data that really address critical questions that are about facilitating program improvement, accountability, and your public reporting. So kind of those three sub issues. And we view them all as equally important, but clearly hope that you use our resources not just focused on your accountability and meeting your reporting requirements for OSEP, but we also have tons of resources and expertise to help you use the data to really improve what's happening for children and families in your state. Next slide. So who do we serve? So I think many of you are familiar with this. Our primary audience is really state leaders, data teams, and cross-agency partners who are responsible for the IDEA Part C and Part B early childhood special ed programs under IDEA. And our work supports the development of data systems that are high quality, integrated, and drive improvement activities. Next slide. So this is a little bit about kind of what we do big picture. Our core focus is around that technical assistance that really helps to build sustainable state capacity, which we know can be challenging for many of the issues states are dealing with. But we hope that our resources really help you build your capacities across these different areas. You know, we tend to think about data as just, oh, those numbers over here in the Excel spreadsheet. But there's, as you begin to dig a little deeper, you know, there's so much more to, you know, all phases of the data collection and reporting and the data inquiry cycle pieces. So we have expertise across these areas. Next slide. So thinking about the kinds of data that we can help you with, you know, we help states strengthen how they collect and use various kinds of data. So those here on the slide, which I will not read to you, but you know, going across data, and we have our team. We are very lucky that we have a team that brings expertise across these different areas. So from supporting you in your OSEP reporting requirements all the way to conducting deeper data analyses to really inform program improvement across all of these different types of data. We are here to help you. Next slide. So we wanted to highlight some of our foundational resources. For those of you that have been around a while, you know that we've been developing many resources across, I think it's 13, 14 years we've been in business now. And many of these have been updated. And we take a lot of pride in that most of our resources are developed with state input into them so that it's not just us as the TA Center designing something we think is needed, but really gathering input from the field, from states about what is needed, and then engaging you all in how those things end up looking. So thank you to those of you that have helped us do this over the years. But our DaSy data systems framework is critical. If you haven't seen our critical questions about early intervention and early childhood special ed, those may be things that you're really interested in. And again, those questions were developed with input from states. Our state leadership competencies, which we developed in our DaSy 2 5-year project, and now we're working on a self-assessment tool that we'll be rolling out soon, connected to those data leadership competencies, our data inquiry cycle, and then our Look, Think, Act module, which is one of our most popular resources. So if you haven't seen that one, we encourage you to check that out. And if you ever have questions about any of our tools or questions about how you might use those tools in your state, we are here to help. So reach out to, and we have some slides about the best ways to get in touch with us if you don't know how to go about connecting with us. But we're here to help because we know sometimes you open a tool and you're just like, yeah, that looks great, but how do I use that? We're here to help talk you through what that might look like for your state, given whatever issues you want to address. So with that, I think I am passing it off to Sally.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. I'd like to talk about our DaSy resources really quickly. And we have tons and tons, and you can go to the next slide, Sierra. We have tons and tons. So we just picked out a few that we'd like to highlight today. Of course, our DaSy website. It offers a variety of resources, and you can access that through dasycenter.org. And our landing page will always include the most recent TA events and information from DaSy. So check in on it often so that you can keep up to date. And you'll, of course, hear more about our website as we go along in this webinar. One of our other resources we'd really like to highlight, our ongoing resources, is a robust library of blogs. And these blogs are words to the wise, and they offer a brief snapshot on a variety of subjects, and provide links to other more in-depth resources, including access to DaSy staff that are knowledgeable about the content of the blog. So really, it's a really quick snapshot, quick read, and then includes links where you can explore and dig into the subject a little bit more. And then we also have EC Data University that we also refer to as EC Data U. And that contains online resources to help you build your competencies in data analysis, data use, and data sharing. The content is really streamlined to focus on relevant data components, and you can access the content within EC Data U in different formats. It contains reflection and application exercises, as well as links to supplemental resources. EC Data U is intended for all data users, from the very, very experienced staff with a thorough knowledge of data management to perhaps some of the new staff that's starting in a new role. And the content on EC Data U is closely tied and references our data leadership competencies. We're also continually updating that. We have a real big push right now to sort of reorganize and add and update new resources on EC Data U. And then the last one we really want to highlight our new DaSy Talks podcasts. These include Real Talk by States for States. The podcasts are hosted by Howard and Jenna, and the series shares practical insights, success stories, and tools from experts and state leaders. It includes foundational resources like the DaSy Data System Framework to innovative state practices. And if you have suggested topics for a podcast, you can include that in the chat, or you can reach out to your DaSy liaison. We really encourage you to tune in, and we're always updating those and have new ones. And I'm not mistaken, I think some of those links will be put in the chat. One of the other TA opportunities we wanted to talk about, of course, is individualized state TA, and it's available to Part C early intervention and Part B 619 early childhood state staff, and it's related to the collection, analysis, reporting, and use of their programs data. And just as a reminder, each state has a DaSy liaison, and that person serves as a primary contact. And you'll get more information from your liaison and can feel free to contact them anytime with either questions or with a specific TA request. And individual TAs based on the needs of the state. And some of that, for example, one can include facilitating state leadership teams or stakeholder meetings related to data systems work, consulting and problem solving, sharing information, example, literature or products and resources from other states, providing feedback on state documents or materials being developed, and also conducting training and support of the state's data system. We also have cross-state TA opportunities, and those are for a broader audience, and it provides states an opportunity to learn from each other, as well as share the great things that are happening in their state. Some of those cross-state resources and activities include learning communities, webinars and other presentations, topical cohorts, data institutes, and meetings on specific topics of interest to our clients. Also, there's toolkits, learning modules, and a host of other things that we can share throughout the webinar. Our next slide contains some of the current and upcoming TA. So we're super duper excited to announce that we are planning for IDIO 2027. We do not have any details to share right now, other than we have started planning and we'll have that sometime next year. And so more info when we secure location, dates, and all those fun things. We'll have a really huge announcement, and it'll be put out to our states, our state staff, our clients, and our partners. And so be watching for that. And then we'd also like to talk about our working series. We have some potential um, um, ideas. We're approaching our third year of this grant cycle. So we're starting to plan for that year 3. And so we're looking at potential working series opportunities on topics such as child find, workforce data, and child outcomes data quality. We're also offering learning communities that you may already be part of, especially for those who marked on the poll that you're very familiar with DaSy. We have learning communities that are topic or role focused. They're ongoing meetings, and they create opportunities for learning and building capacity and sharing knowledge. And so you see the list of the learning communities on the right-hand side, and that list is also available on our DaSy website, and also how to reach out to the leaders of those learning communities in case you want to join those. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jenna to talk about a few of our toolkits and how those might be used.
Thanks, Sally. Hello, everyone. So I am going to go over a few toolkits today on the next slide. So like Sally and Jennifer mentioned, we have tons of resources along with DaSy toolkits. Today we'll talk about 4 of them. So the data visualization or data viz toolkit, the data governance toolkit, data processes toolkit, and data linking. So we'll share what those are, how they've been used, and you can also share if you have any questions about any of them. So the first one will be the data viz toolkit. This toolkit assists states in presenting engaging, comprehensible, relevant, and meaningful visual data. So whether that's, using and designing charts or dashboards or data tables and infographics, we have resources for that. So the DataViz toolkit has comprehensive resources and information, including design principles, data considerations, accessibility tips, general how-tos, examples, and sample tools. There's a lot of them in there, so you can really poke around. The design principles really apply to any kind of design principle for data viz. So whether that's like using color and making sure that what you're ending up with is accessible in terms of color contrast, or if you're using a chart and you want to make sure that it's conveying the information that you want it to convey by reducing clutter. Those are the kinds of things that, or those are the kinds of tips and information that's included in the toolkit. So states have used the toolkit to share local program data with their local programs. So for example, if they were supporting with or developing a local data profile that includes maybe some charts of state aggregated data versus local program data, so you can compare and contrast and have those charts side by side. States have also used the tool to prepare data for reporting to state legislature, and also preparing data to strengthen information sharing and community engagement. So it's really a useful toolkit to help you compile data and then portray it in a meaningful way that tells a certain story that you want to tell. And that way people can make meaning out of the data. The next toolkit that we will discuss is the data governance toolkit. So this toolkit assists Part C and Part B 619 program staff with creating or enhancing their data governance policies and procedures. The toolkit contains information, guidance, and templates for you to use. So that could be around anything like, what if there's a data breach and how do we respond to it? Or how do we uphold data quality? Or what are our policies around data security and access? Or what are our policies around data retention and destruction? So there's a lot of information in there, all related to data governance. States have used the toolkit to review and create their own data governance plan, and also improve collaboration and data partnerships between C and 619 programs. So whether that's related to maybe even creating a data sharing agreement, you'll find a lot of those resources and even templates and guidance in this toolkit. And then the next toolkit that we'll be discussing is the Part C Data Processes Toolkit. This is meant for state lead agencies. It assists them in establishing a well-managed process for data collection, analysis, and reporting. It also contains customizable data collection protocols to document your data processes for your lead agency. So whether that's around, organizing and documenting your data processes for preparing the APR for each indicator. What does that look like? Who are the data stewards? What are the timelines? Where can you find the data? There's also a protocol for the state landscape. So that way you can kind of see what are all the data processes at the lead agency, who does what, who's responsible for what are our processes and protocols. It's very helpful. The protocols have space for you to answer or add in your information, your processes, so that you can document all of these different things and have it in writing. States have used the tool to provide guidance to their own local programs to strengthen a culture of data use and data quality. They've also used it to collect and use data for target setting, and of course, to document all of their data processes. So also a lot in that toolkit, a lot of different protocols that I think they're Word documents that you can download and use because they're fillable Word documents. And then the last toolkit is the data linking toolkit. So this toolkit assists states as they identify and link data with partners that they may need to answer more complex questions. So you might be a Part C or Part B 619 program, and you might be linking data between, C or 619 and McV or EDDI or CAPTA. So the toolkit includes downloadable tools to support Part C and Part B 619 program staff as they consider, prepare, and successfully link their data. States have used the tool to collect and share program transition data, for example. Another example is child outcomes data. And states have also used the tool to improve their collaboration and data partnerships between Part C and 619 programs. And you can find also in the toolkit steps to data linking. So it'll walk you through, checking your data, assessing partner readiness, formalizing the data linking partnership, then linking your data, analyzing your data, and also sustaining data linking. So also a lot in there. And we will also end with a poll, but if there's any questions about any of these toolkits, let us know in the chat. Otherwise, we would like to know from you, which toolkit would you like more information about? So the Data Viz toolkit, the Data Governance toolkit, Data Processes toolkit, data linking, or something else maybe that you've heard of or seen on the DaSy website and would like more information on. So feel free to respond to that poll.
Jenna, while people are completing the poll, I would like to also put in a plug for our DaSy staff. Like, these tools are sometimes overwhelming. And just a quick reminder that you're not on your own. We're here to help you either just look through them and see if that's something potentially you would like to explore or dig into or take out parts and to use, but you're not on your own to use these, even though they're publicly available, they're freely accessible on the website. We're here to help you and support you using them. So just making sure that people keep that in mind. Because like I said, the tools sometimes can get a little overwhelming.
Thanks for that reminder, Sally. I'm not sure if the poll launched, but thank you for responding. I might not be able to see the poll results, but yes, TA is available if you're interested. Oh, thank you. So it looks like 62% are interested in the DataViz toolkit, 8% in DataGov, 15% data processes, and 15% data linking. Great. Thanks for letting us know. I think we will also be having additional DataViz resources through ECDataU. So that's, linking all those different things. So I think we will talk about, well, we've mentioned that if you're interested in any TA or have any questions, you can always reach out to any DaSy staff or your DaSy liaison. So Jennifer had put that link to find out who your DaSy liaison is for your state. So please reach out at any time. So thanks. I think I am going to pass it to Ginger for our next portion of today's webinar.
Thank you, Jenna. So you've heard a lot about different types of TA DaSy can provide, some of which you can use on your own through a toolkit or with support, some of which consists of more intensive TA. And somewhere in the middle, DaSy can support states with specific areas of need that tend to be a little bit more short-term, related to data collection, reporting, and use. And one of these is related to the SPP APR, or the State Performance Plan, annual performance report process. So we do review APRs every year, if you're interested in that. But what we're going to talk about today is how DaSy can support your target setting efforts. Since a new APR cycle is coming up starting in FFY 2020. Actually, I don't remember what FFY it is, but the first report will be February 2028. And so we can help you prepare for those new targets that states have to set. So hopefully you know that at the start of each SPP APR cycle, state programs, both Part B and Part C, have to reset the state achievement targets on the results indicators in the APR. And we'll go through what those are in just a bit in case you're unsure on which ones those include. So one of those, a few notes about some of the federal requirements. Targets do have to be set at the start of each new cycle, but you can reset in interim years when needed. So states also have to report to the public on local program achievement relative to those targets. So it's really important to set targets that are ambitious but achievable across the state. A few notes about that: targets do have to be set for every federal fiscal year, and they have to be set with broad stakeholder input. And we'll review that in just a bit, but there's quite a bit that states need to report on how stakeholders have been involved in that process. As I said, they need to be rigorous and aspirational, but realistic. And then, of course, they are included in your SPP APR annually. Next slide, please. So here are the targets and indicators relevant to DaSy's work. On the Part C early intervention side, indicators 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, and 11. So there are a lot related to Part C, from settings to early childhood outcomes and family outcomes and dispute resolution through to the SIP, the State Systemic Improvement Plan. On the Part B side, DaSy supports work related to early childhood special education indicators. So those are 6, 7, and potentially 17 if you have an early childhood focused state identified measurable results for your SIP. So just know that we're able to support target setting on any of those indicators. Next slide, please. A few other reminders. States do have the ultimate responsibility to set targets, and those do have to be done. The APR can't be completed without the targets being set. So it's really important that you do some advance work to set those reasonably for your state. Interim years targets. So between the first year of the cycle and the last year of the cycle. They can stay the same. They can reflect decreased performance. Maybe you've had a decline over the past few years and you're working up to a higher level of performance. So those can vary in the interim years, but your final FFY target does have to be higher than the baseline that's reported in the APR. And baselines can change, but can be difficult. OSEP occasionally will decline a baseline change depending on the circumstances in the state. So it's important to just recognize that those do have to be approved. And so be sure to work ahead if you want to change your baselines related to your indicators. And then, as I mentioned, states do have to report on how and from whom input was obtained throughout the process of target setting. And so on the next slide, we have a few notes on that to just give a brief introduction to what is necessary. So the description of your stakeholder input will usually be entered into the introduction of the SPP APR in your general supervision overview. But you can include details in each of the indicator sections. So information that they typically request is the number of parent members and how they were engaged in target setting, as well as the rest of the process of the APR. So how were they involved in analyzing data, developing improvement strategies, and so forth. Very important to include families in the process of understanding and improving the overall program. Secondly, you'll need to describe the activities conducted to increase parents' capacity to support and participate in the improvement activities. So what are you doing as a state to ensure that families are aware of what's going on, that they have the background information that they need in order to participate meaningfully? The mechanisms and timelines for soliciting your public input, and then the mechanisms and timelines for making the results of all of this work available to the public. So as you know, you have to provide links to your public reporting pages and other things like that. And so OSEP and the Department of Ed want to know the steps involved in making all of that happen. Okay. On the next slide, I'm going to hand it over to Tony to talk about some examples of TA.
Thank you, Ginger, and hello, everyone. I did drop in the chat that the new 6-year cycle for the SPP APR will cover FFY 2026 through FFY 2031, with the FFY 2026 being due February of 2028. So in front of us, we have examples of technical assistance in action. This is work that DaSy has collaborated with states on. And so we have worked with state teams to explore TA needs and make necessary connections. So necessary connections could be ensuring that a certain segment of stakeholders is at the table. So Ginger mentioned parents. So we'll talk with the states. We'll work with you to make sure we have all of the necessary parties at the table. And then additionally, Jennifer talked about our TA specialist earlier and how we pair our TA specialists with the support that's needed from the state. So that is another area of connection, because we know that there are several indicators that will need targets, as Ginger mentioned a few moments ago, and we very well may need a TA specialist with the skills and experience in a certain indicator. So we would definitely bring them in for the work. We have provided an overview of federal requirements to state staff, as well as to the stakeholders and the stakeholder subgroups that are engaged in the work. We have supported state planning for stakeholder engagement in terms of who to invite, how to make sure the stakeholders are prepared, in addition to identifying dates, timelines, and logistics, along with meeting topics. So the dates, timelines, and logistics could be identifying the dates of when a stakeholder group or an ICC comes together to make sure that our timing in terms of preparing for these meetings coincides with the dates of existing meetings, and making sure that we can get all of the indicators uh, reviewed and have stakeholder engagement along the way. And so we also work with state teams in terms of preparing data for the stakeholders. That includes the analysis and data visualization. A key point here is that it's not only about the analysis and data visualization, but we will work together to make sure that stakeholders can read, understand, and use the data to ensure their engagement in this target setting process. And we can and we have facilitated or co-facilitated stakeholder meetings, and also we can work with you or be a thought partner when it comes for that time to decide on what those final targets are going to be based on that stakeholder input. And on our next slide, we have there we go. Thank you. And so we have two links here. One is for the target setting with stakeholders blog, and then the other is for the target setting guide. We do want to inform you that we will be updating these resources. However, there is very valuable information in here that can be used now. And in fact, we're using it now. States are using it now. And on our next slide, we have an example of what is in the target setting guide. This is out of the approaches section, the analytic approaches section in the target setting guide. So we just want to let you know when we're planning and we're deciding on the analysis or an analytic approach, we don't have to just select one at the beginning. We could take a look at multiple approaches to see which one is the best fit for your state, and then we would work from there. And just a few final thoughts. States have started planning, and we can work with you right now. And there are states that have long-term plans. They're taking advantage of this long runway until February 2028. Well, that's when the report, the SPP APR for federal fiscal year 2026 is due. But states are taking advantage of this time to start planning and get activities in place now to prepare to meet with their stakeholders. And then also, DaSy has a family data leaders component that has been in place for some time now. And we did want to let you know that some states have parents who have gone through the family data leaders training, and they would be absolutely fabulous to involve in this work. And with that, we will turn it over to Sally.
Thanks, Tony. Now we've talked about some of the things that are available TA wise and also our target setting. And so future state TA needs. So coming up in the fall, don't have exact dates yet, but coming up in the fall, we'll have a webinar supporting IDA reporting requirements, so your SPP APR. And again, based on the poll, many of you are familiar with DaSy. And so you realize that we, in collaboration often with the ECTA, have a webinar to help states as they prepare for that reporting period, as well as, that we typically review your SBP APRs before you turn them into OSEP. And so again, making sure that you remember and keep that, in the back of your mind that that's available again. That'll also include any new or updated tools and resources that we have available. And also just a quick update on anything that's new in the TA world. So any of the new in-person events, working series, or other cross-state opportunities that may be planned between now and the end of the year. So I mentioned earlier that we are starting to plan for year 3 and beyond of this grant cycle. So we would really like your input. So we have a Padlet available, and we would like you to take the opportunity, just a few minutes, and think about the next like 3 to 6 months. And let us know on the Padlet potential challenges or needs that you may have over the rest of 2026. So it may either be you personally as a staff, as IDA staff in your state, or it could be something along your program. So just think about what challenges you may be facing and how we could perhaps help with that. Or also put on there what TA you might want. I'm going to give everybody just a couple of minutes because it does look like we have a few extra minutes to complete that. Also, just to let you know, we will leave the Padlet open for a few days to give everyone a little more think time and add additional information. And if you're like me, you open things and you think, oh, I'm going to leave that open, and that tab stays open for a while, and then you have multiple tabs. And then something really bad happens to your computer and you lose all your tabs because it closes. So if you think about it later on in the week or even next week and think, oh, I would love to have information on, just reach out to us. And we can either send you the link to the Padlet, or we can give you that information, or, connect you with a liaison. Okay, while everybody's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and start our closing. And again, reach out to your DaSy liaison for more information or TA requests. And again, like we said earlier, that could be anything from just, hey, can you send me the link to the Data Viz toolkit if you can't find it, or whatever it happens to be, or a quick question, all the way to something that we talked about with Ginger and Tony spoke about, target setting. Like if you really want to get a jump start on that, we're here to support and help you. If you're unsure of the contact information, the liaison page, I think Grace put that in the chat, where you can look up your DaSy liaison and how to contact them. And I'm just going to make sure really quick, because I haven't had my chat pulled up, that we didn't have any questions. So I'm scrolling through just really quickly, and I don't see any direct questions from our participants that we had a few minutes to answer. Okay, on our next slide, evaluation reminder. We always offer evaluation at the end of all of our webinars and our TA events. And that's because we really take seriously what you say in all of your feedback. And that helps us really make sure that we're meeting your needs, as well as how we may change up, make it better, additional information you may need, all of those good things. So you should receive a link right after the close of this. Please check your inbox. It may even go to your spam. The sender is Qualtrics. And sometimes, when you send it out mass like that, your state blocks it and puts it in your spam. So check your spam really quickly. It says 5 minutes on the slide, but I don't think it really actually takes that long. So it just takes a few minutes out of your day, and we really appreciate and want your feedback. If there aren't any last minute questions or anything that any of our wonderful DaSy staff presenters would like to add, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. So thank you for your participation, and thanks to all of our DaSy presenters for being on today. Thanks, everybody, and have a great afternoon or evening.